You think marriage is the end of loneliness, the final reward after years of chasing love, the safety net for your emotions, your legacy, your sense of worth. You think you'll finally be seen, held, understood. But for many men, marriage is not a sanctuary. It is a velvet prison. The bars are made of love songs and social praise. The chains are labeled duty, sacrifice, manhood. And no one talks about it. Not your parents, not your friends, not even your therapist. Because to say it out loud is heresy. Marriage can destroy a man's freedom. And not in theory, in reality. Have you noticed it? The man who used to dream big, speak boldly, live wildly, now moves like a shadow of himself. He no longer writes. He no longer meets friends. His eyes are tired, his jokes safer, his voice quieter. He's not angry. He's not bitter. He's just fading. And yet society calls him a good husband. But beneath the smiles there's a silence, and beneath that silence there's a scream. Why do I feel smaller, not stronger? Why do I ask permission for the life I once owned? Why do I feel like I've traded my fire for peace and still feel unrest? Today, we're going to talk about what no one dares say. Marriage, when entered unconsciously, can become the most socially accepted form of male self-erasure. It's not about hating women. It's not about abandoning love. It's about telling the truth that too many men walk into marriage thinking they'll be crowned king and wake up years later realizing they've become obedient servants in their own homes. And the most tragic part, they volunteered. No one warned them. So today I will. This is the truth no one tells you. To understand why marriage can feel like a slow spiritual erosion for men, we must first strip away the romance and look at it through the raw, unfiltered lens of philosophy. Because long before dating apps and wedding hashtags, the great thinkers of human history already sensed something was wrong beneath the surface. Let's begin with Nietzsche. He was no enemy of love, but he saw marriage as a social mechanism of moral domestication, a system designed not to liberate the individual, but to tame him. Nietzsche believed society invented virtue not to elevate man, but to control him. And nowhere was this more apparent than in marriage, where a man is expected to give up his inner wildness in exchange for acceptance. He wrote almost with a smirk, "Marriage is a long conversation interrupted by disputes." But what he really meant was this: once you marry, society no longer expects you to grow, to fight, to become. You are now expected to conform, to be stable, reliable, agreeable. A man tamed. The Nietzschean man who follows his will to power. His inner creative fire is not welcome in traditional marriage. That man is too unpredictable, too intense, too free. Marriage asks him to tone down, to compromise, to behave. In other words, to shrink. Then there's Schopenhauer, who took an even darker view. To him, marriage was a biological trap, an illusion, cast by nature to perpetuate the species. He saw romantic love as the ultimate scam, seducing men with emotion, so they would voluntarily hand over their freedom, their finances, even their futures. Marriage is the trap into which the male is lured by the instinct of reproduction and by the hope of a personal happiness which never comes. Harsh, perhaps, but look closer. Look, how many men have sacrificed dreams, health, identity, not for war, not for purpose, but for a marriage that slowly suffocates the very essence of who they are. For Schopenhauer, woman's instinct is to seek security, and man's instinct is to seek legacy and creation. But marriage, as structured by society, forces the man to become the provider of safety at the cost of his visionary fire. He becomes predictable, contained, and over time disenchanted. But perhaps the deepest psychological understanding came from Carl Jung. Jung didn't oppose marriage, he saw its spiritual potential. But he warned that without deep inner work, marriage becomes a stage where people unconsciously act out the unmet parts of themselves. For men, this means marrying their anima, the idealized feminine image inside their psyche. Jung believed that every man projects this anima onto the woman he falls for. He doesn't love her as she is. He loves what she represents to his unconscious, the nurturing mother, the healing goddess, the emotional savior. And so he gives himself to her, not because she asked, but because he thinks she completes him. But what happens when she's not the fantasy? What happens when real life interrupts the projection? He feels betrayed, not by her, but by the collapse of the dream he didn't know he was clinging to. In that moment, Jung says the man has a choice to wake up or to shrink further. If he wakes up, he can begin the process of individuation, of reclaiming his identity and integrating his unconscious. But if he refuses, he becomes emotionally dependent, endlessly chasing a woman to reflect the parts of himself he never developed. And this, Jung warned, is when marriage becomes enslavement. Not because of the woman, not because of malice, but because the man never entered the relationship as a whole being. He entered it looking for salvation, and in doing so, he forfeited his sovereignty. So what do these three thinkers have in common? Nietzsche shows us how marriage becomes a moral straitjacket. Schopenhauer reveals its biological coercion and false promise. Jung uncovers the unconscious forces that turn love into projection and dependency. Together, they reveal a terrifying truth. If a man does not know himself, marriage will bury him alive. He will not bleed. He will not scream. He will simply forget who he is. One compromised decision, one silenced instinct, one buried dream at a time until he's a stranger in his own life, praised by others, but invisible to himself. And the world will call it maturity. But it is not maturity. It is surrender. And unless a man is conscious of these forces, unless he walks into love with eyes wide open, he will mistake his own burial for commitment. He will confuse obedience with virtue. He will call a cage home. He doesn't wear chains. He wears a wedding ring. He doesn't sleep in a prison. He sleeps in a house he pays for. But he wakes up tired. And it's not the body that's exhausted, it's the soul. Because a marriage for many men becomes a system of beautiful obligations that slowly become unbearable expectations. Let's name them. The first is emotional slavery. It begins subtly. He learns that peace in the household depends on his emotional regulation, not hers. If she is upset, it's his job to fix it. If he is upset, it's his job to suppress it. Her anger is expression. His anger is danger. He is told to be emotionally available, but not too emotional. To be empathetic, but never burden her. To open up, but never bleed. Over time, he becomes emotionally exhausted, not because he lacks depth, but because his feelings have nowhere to land. And when he does express discomfort, he's told he's overreacting, or worse, he's guilted. After everything I do, you still complain. So he learns silence. He confuses stillness with strength. But inside he's crumbling. Then comes financial bondage. Marriage doesn't just merge hearts, it merges liabilities. Suddenly he is not a man pursuing a mission, he is a provider tethered to performance. His value becomes a number, his worth becomes measured in the quiet fear of not bringing in enough. And if it ends, if the relationship collapses, the system does not reset, it punishes. Many men lose half of what they worked for. Some lose access to their children. Others are crushed under alimony and child support obligations that make even breathing feel expensive. And society calls this fair, as if splitting assets automatically splits pain. But here's what no one tells you: it's not about the money. It's about what money represents: his power to move, to choose, to act. When his finances become shared or supervised, his agency dissolves. The third chain is loss of behavioral freedom. He used to spend weekends with friends, attend workshops, travel, spontaneously disappear into creative solitude. Now every hour not accounted for becomes a source of suspicion. Every hobby is questioned. Every friendship examined for threats. He doesn't even realize when it began, but one day he's asking permission for joy. Is it okay if I go out Friday night? Would it upset you if I spent time on my project today? Do you mind if I go visit my parents this weekend? These aren't questions. They're requests for psychological approval. And worst of all, he often convinces himself that this is love, that checking in, compromising, shrinking is what a good man does. But when your freedom requires a permission slip, it's no longer freedom. Then comes the final, most dangerous chain, spiritual depletion. He starts to lose the voice inside, not all at once, but slowly, like a fire that runs out of oxygen. He stops dreaming big. He stops taking risks. He stops reaching for the impossible. Because marriage didn't just take his schedule, it took his spontaneity, his rebellion, his madness. And without those, he becomes domesticated, a tame man, a well-fed man, a useful man, but not a free man. He becomes a responsible pet allowed to sleep inside, fed on time, praised for good behavior, but only as long as he remains predictable. And make no mistake, he might smile, he might laugh, but it is often the smile of someone slowly forgetting what it felt like to roar. These forms of slavery don't come with violence, they come with expectations. They don't feel like oppression, they feel like love, partnership, harmony. But harmony that costs your soul is just submission in disguise. And most tragically, no one tells him, because everyone around him is playing the same game. His friends are silent, they're in the same cage. His parents encourage it, they call it maturity. The media celebrates it, they call it growth. And she, his partner, often doesn't even realize what's happening. She believes he's stepping up. She believes this is love too. And maybe in her world it is. But in his bones, in his breath, in his private, unspoken moments, he knows he's fading. So he performs, he pretends, he adjusts. And no one mourns the death of his wildness, because no one even notices it was once alive. But you noticed, you felt it, that internal tension, that hunger for air, that scream beneath the smile. And now that you see it, now that we've named the chains, the real question begins. Why did you walk into the cage? Because no one shoved you. You volunteered. And that's exactly where we go next. No one forced him. He wasn't dragged to the altar in chains. He walked there, suit pressed, eyes glowing, heart wide open. He signed the papers with trembling hands, not from fear, but from hope, from belief, from love. So how does a man voluntarily step into a system that slowly silences his inner voice? Because the trap doesn't look like a trap. It looks like everything he's ever been told to want. From the moment he was a boy, the world whispered the same script. Grow up, find a good woman, settle down, be a man. And what does that mean? Really? It means tame yourself. It means stop chasing dreams, chase stability. It means trade wildness for security, trade solitude for sacrifice. It means your freedom is beautiful but dangerous. Lock it away. Be safe. Be accepted. Be loved. And so he grows up believing that marriage is not just a milestone, it's proof. Proof that he's made it, that he's complete, that he's no longer a reckless boy. He sees peers getting married, having children, building homes, and feels left behind if he doesn't. He hears his parents say, "When will you find a nice girl?" as if love is a deadline, not a discovery. He sees movies where the man is lost, broken, or immature until he finds her. Then suddenly he's whole. And deeper than all of that, there's the anima. Carl Jung warned us every man carries within him an unconscious image of the perfect woman, the nurturer, the muse, the healer. She's not real. She's a psychological projection born of childhood fantasy and emotional hunger. But when he meets a woman who seems to match that image, he doesn't just fall for her. He falls into her, into the idea that she will complete him, fix him, give him peace. And this is the most dangerous illusion of all. Because now he doesn't enter marriage with clarity. He enters it with longing, with need, with the hidden hope that this woman will make the pain disappear, make him feel like a man, give him purpose, even salvation. She becomes his reason for being. And once that happens, he's no longer choosing love, he's worshipping it. He's handing over power, not because she demanded it, but because he never knew it was his to keep. This is why so many men don't see the trap, because the prison is painted in the colors of affection. The walls are lined with promises. The keys are offered by people who say, "This is what real men do." And the bars, they only appear years later when the fire is gone, the silence grows heavy, and the man can't remember the last time he felt like himself. But by then, he doesn't question the system. He questions himself. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe this is just what being a man is. No, this is not manhood. This is emotional surrender disguised as commitment. And unless a man sees it for what it is, unless he questions the very stories he's been handed, he will keep entering relationships, not from strength, but from scarcity, from fear, from the ache of being incomplete. And no matter how beautiful the woman, no matter how loving the start, if you enter from lack, you will pay in freedom. But there is another way, a path where love does not require surrender, where partnership is not prison, where a man brings his fullness, not his brokenness, into union. And that begins by seeing the trap before you step in. So what now? You've seen the trap. You've felt the weight of expectations wrapped in affection of duty, dressed as love. You've named the chains. You've remembered who you were before you bent, folded, and disappeared. But the answer isn't to hate women. It isn't to abandon love. It's to reclaim yourself fully, fiercely, consciously, so that love becomes a choice, not a cage. Let's begin where all true freedom starts with boundaries. The man who cannot say no will never live a real yes. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are the lines that protect your soul from being swallowed. You must have time that is yours unapologetically, space that is not monitored, projects, passions, friendships, and silence that exist without explanation. You must protect the fire of your own becoming, or it will be slowly extinguished by the winds of we. If she needs access to all of you all the time to feel secure, she is not loving you. She is consuming you, and you are not here to be consumed. Next, you must understand the difference between love and submission. Love does not demand your obedience. It does not trade your authenticity for peace. If you are constantly filtering your truth, reshaping your desires, or adjusting your nature to avoid tension, you are not in love. You are in a contract of appeasement. A real partner does not fear your edges. She honors your wholeness. And if she only loves the parts of you that are convenient, then you must love the parts of you she does not. Then there is Stoic sovereignty. The Stoics taught us, we do not control what others feel, do, or say. We only control how we respond. A man who makes his emotions dependent on the approval, praise, or attention of a woman will forever be a servant to her moods. You must train yourself to be emotionally self-sufficient. Feel deeply, but do not cling. Give fully, but do not collapse. Hold space, but do not lose yourself inside it. When she is angry, breathe. When she is silent, stand still. When she tests your strength, do not flinch. Because you are not here to be emotionally rewarded like a pet. You are here to embody truth even when it is inconvenient. That brings us to financial and psychological independence. A man who does not own his time, his money, or his direction will never own his life. If your choices are dictated by fear of losing access, of being cut off, of disappointing someone who holds the keys to your peace, then you are not a man in love. You are a man in quiet captivity. Build your own fortress, not of bricks, but of clarity, structure, self-discipline. Have a purpose bigger than your relationship. Have resources that don't depend on her approval. Have a vision that remains unshaken even if she walks away. Because the man who does not need the relationship to define him,
becomes infinitely more powerful within it.
And if you choose to marry, do so not as a man seeking completion, but as one who is already whole. Marry with open eyes, not to fulfill a fantasy, not to silence your loneliness, not to finally become acceptable in the eyes of your family, church, or culture. Marry because your paths align, your truths converge, and your souls support, not absorb each other. Before you say yes to a woman, say yes to these truths. I will not sacrifice my truth for comfort. I will not confuse sacrifice with virtue. I will not abandon my friends, my dreams, or my voice for peace. I will not make you my purpose. I already have one. I will love you, but I will never need you to complete me. And if she cannot meet you there, then love her from a distance, not with bitterness, but with reverence for yourself. Because your freedom is not selfish, it is sacred. When a man keeps his freedom, he brings to the relationship a presence that is magnetic, not manipulative, stable, not submissive, alive, not obedient. He loves from choice, not from lack. He speaks with clarity, not apology. He stays not because he has nowhere else to go, but because he chooses to be there. And that changes everything. Love is not the opposite of freedom. Real love amplifies freedom, but only when both people have first met themselves completely. Only when the man walks in with his fire intact, not hidden, not dimmed, but burning. Bright, bold, unapologetic. So if you are in a relationship now or seeking one, ask not, will she accept me? Ask, will I still recognize myself 5 years from now standing beside her? Because if the answer is no, you're already losing yourself. You were not born to disappear into someone else's life. You were not made to trade your instincts, your truth, your untamed fire for the illusion of safety called settling down. You were not put here to be liked, to be managed, to be quietly tolerated in a house you built, but no longer feel at home in. You were born to live with your spine straight and your heart burning. But too many men, good men, talented men, visionary men, are walking this world like ghosts, haunted not by failure, but by a life they said yes to. Too soon, too easily, too unconsciously. They loved blindly. They served selflessly. They called submission growth and silence peace, but inside they knew something sacred was lost. The world won't mourn the man you could have been. It will reward your compliance. It will praise your predictability. It will celebrate your sacrifices, especially the ones no one asked for. But you will know. In the quiet of the night, in the mirror of your own eyes, you will know. And that's why I'm telling you now, don't mistake love for permission to disappear. Don't call it devotion when it's actually resignation. Don't confuse compromise with surrender, because the truth is brutal but clean. If a relationship costs you your freedom, your voice, your vision, it's not love. It's a beautiful form of control. And the most dangerous prisons are the ones we decorate ourselves. So I leave you with this. In every relationship, ask one question. Am I expanding or am I shrinking? If you are shrinking, no matter how romantic the setting, how loyal the partner, or how sweet the words, you are not in love. You are in retreat. And the man who retreats from himself for too long forgets how to return. So come back to your path, to your voice, to your freedom, because the world needs men who love without losing themselves, and it begins with you.